If you know, you know, we're gonna use these later. For this Jurassic World Evolution 2 build, we're gonna use the dinosaurs in aviary trick, because obviously we want the most secure possible enclosure for our dangerous Atrociraptors so they don't escape, but we also need to prevent these valuable assets from being stolen, since we're dealing with a lot of shady people here. I'm using tour gates on the aviaries to pretend that we have ways for the Atrociraptors to get out of the big aviary and connect their enclosure to other parts of this build. Now, you can't get a regular fence right up against one of those gates because the aviary has a really big hitbox for them, but you can get the Malta wall pieces really close, and that's how I connected the two aviaries and bridged the gap between the aviary and where I could actually start placing fences. For context, what we are building here is a main enclosure for the Atrociraptors, a fighting pit with viewing galleries, a medical bay for after the fights. This is also where other opponents can be brought in, a training area for the Atrociraptors, a loading area for the transport of the Atrociraptors, and a black market. So there's a lot going on in this build. I feel like the interconnected aviary idea that is introduced here is something that you could definitely use in a regular park as well, and just pretend that the dinosaurs can actually use these gates to go from one aviary to the next or one exhibit to the next. I feel like you could definitely use something like that. Okay, so what we're doing now is, again, we're using the gates to pretend that the Atrociraptor can come out of the main enclosure there, and this is their training area. So this is where, you know, they do the laser-guided, pointy thing here. As Jonas Santos says, you cannot breed loyalty, you have to nurture it, as something like that, something along those lines. And then attached to the training area is a transport area. So this is where the Atrociraptors, plural, would get loaded up into trucks and they would get transported to do missions. Or maybe this facility also functions as a breeding facility and training multiple new generations of Atrociraptor, right? It's not just the 4 Atrociraptors. Maybe they just keep maybe they produce Atrociraptors, and then when they sell them, they get them ready for transport. So that's that separate area off to the side, and I'm just placing a lot of the facility stuff over here to pretend that this is like a readying area for the trainers and just getting the Atrociraptors into their cages and then onto the trucks. This is also where we will be using the MVU trucks, which I showed at the start of this video. We're going to park them here. We're going to pretend that they're not medical trucks. We're going to pretend that those are transport trucks that the individual cages get loaded into. And then in front, or like between the fighting pit and the training area, is this separate black market. It's just a lot of path work, but you know, I don't mind a lot of path work. I've built a like full black market previously before the Malta DLC even came out, and I still plan on doing a full black market build afterwards as well with these new tools, although I kind of feel like I already nailed it with that first one before the DLC even came out. But I wanted to add like a smaller dedicated black market in here as well, which is maybe particularly focused on the Atrociraptor business, you know, so they can they sell fighting types of dinosaurs specifically. They sell the Atrociraptors themselves, obviously, maybe a specific kind of food for the Atrociraptors. Just stuff like that, you know, the laser guns and the technology that they use, stuff like that. And then obviously off to the side here, which can be accessed both from the main enclosure and importantly from the fighting pit, is a medical bay. So there's a paleo medical building. I couldn't quite attach it, but it's close enough. So this is where if a dinosaur is wounded during a fight, it would go over here to get surgery, to get healed. And the enclosure that's attached to it is also where other bad people can load their fighting dinosaurs in, so they can bring them into the fighting pit and fight each other or fight the Atrociraptors, so that the Atrociraptor sellers can prove just how superior the Atrociraptors are. And obviously it's also part entertainment. So that's like all of the different pieces of this build hinged together. And then this is kind of like the entry point of everything. So there's the guest entry point that leads into the black market and the viewing galleries for the fighting pits. And they can also watch the training, because again, it's like part of the sales pitch, right? To show a bit of the training. And then back here, this is again where the other bad guys would come in with their trucks, loaded with Demon Carnos or Allosaurus or whatever dinosaur that they are fighting with that particular day. They bring them through that entrance over there. They unload them here, bring them into the bay that is connected to the paleomedical facility, but also to the fighting pit. And then there's just some storage over here and some cages and stuff like that. So this is just the unloading area for the dinosaurs that are fighting in the fighting pit. And I'm placing some of the like messy looking Malta decorations around to to create that look, that aesthetic of it's illegal, it's all bad, it's wrong, it's not polished. And I guess that is the one way that the Malta decorations would actually improve on my previous black market build, because the previous black market build was before that DLC, so it just used a lot of the DFW buildings. But adding some of those unfinished crumbling wall pieces would be really good to create more of that illegal feel to it. But here we are with creating the market itself. So every one of those, storage shacks represents a stand where a vendor can sell any number of things, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be Atrociraptor related even. They could also be selling Dimorphodon and Microceratus. Thought about that one, Frontier? Huh? Did you think about that one? So yeah, they can just sell all sorts of stuff over here. And I feel like the layout is kind of interesting, where some of the rows are, how do you call that, perpendicular to the other ones. I feel like this worked out really well to fill the space. And I guess that's an idea that you can use, like if you're building your own fighting pit situation or something akin to this, and you have a bit of empty space, just turn it into a black market. And it's a really cool way to fill the space, and I think it just looks really, really, really good. Adding a little bit of terrain work, but obviously not too much, because these people are not very concerned with the well-being of the dinosaur, so I'm just chucking some rocks into the enclosure, some trees later as well, just to fill the empty space a little bit. These fountains in front of the viewing gallery are actually water troughs for the Atrociraptor, so I could forego adding water to the enclosure and just keep that really dry look to it. And now, as announced at the start of the video, we're going to use all of these vehicles that I parked here. Now, what I did to get the vehicles to not go back to their station is I built a ton of stations, and one by one I drove the vehicle out and enclosed the vehicle itself in a square of fences, which you just saw me delete. And once all the vehicles were out there, then I enclosed all of the buildings. So there's like this cluster of paleomedical buildings and response facilities, and there's a big fence going all around the entire cluster, which prevents the vehicles from coming back to the buildings. So those little square vehicle enclosures, those are no longer necessary. Those were just so the vehicles would not return to the building as I was driving all of them out before I could build the big fence. So right now the vehicles cannot return to their station, and what that means is that they will just stay parked wherever you put them, and that allows you to use the vehicles as a really cool, almost like a decorative piece, but it really just livens up your build. So Like these rangers right here, those are sentries. They're keeping watch at the entrance. And as I said, I'm using the MVU trucks right here in the Atrociraptor transport area as transport for the Atrociraptors. So the cages would get loaded into those vehicles, into those trucks, and they would be on the move again to do missions or for a sale or whatever, right? So I really like that idea. And again, this is something that you can also just incorporate in your parks. Now, this is the overview of everything that we've built. I already talked about what it is: a main enclosure, fighting pit, black market, training area, medical bay, transport area, so all of that. And I really hope that you enjoyed seeing this build and seeing the Atrociraptors in the aviary. This is totally unmodded, it's just a glitch. I have a video on that on the channel, but I will link it in the description box of this video as well in case you're still unfamiliar with this trick. It's really cool, and I really like using it for builds like this. I think it looks absolutely awesome. Or if you just want to combine like dinosaurs with flying reptiles for a really nice mixed enclosure. Now, I'm still on my ambitious plan to do an exhibit speed build every day for 12 days straight. So if you don't want to miss out on anything, then please consider subscribing to the channel, because you're gonna get a high dose of exhibit building inspiration over the next coming days, which is going to give you plenty of ideas for your own builds, and you can just mix and match the ideas from these individual building videos, these individual speed builds, combine them into something awesome and unleash your own creativity. I just really hope that these videos give you that boost of inspiration to get started and build your own best park. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like, and again, subscribe for way more creative Jurassic World Evolution 2 park building. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.